Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome you to today's fireside chat, streaming live on LinkedIn and YouTube. My name is Aneta Ramirez, and I'm the Atos Research Community Manager. And just to kick things off, let's start with a quick introduction of our wonderful guests here today.
I'm Adil Tahiri. I'm head of Client Advisory Group and CTO, and I'm based in the UK.
My name is Michel van Ooyen. I'm the CTO of Generative AI, and I'm based in the Netherlands.
Hello, I am Samia Jnini, and I am leading our Generative AI service line.
Hello, everyone. My name is Purushottam Praswani. I work as a CTO for Atos. I'm based in Sydney. Nice to meet you all. Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to have you all here. And we are honored to represent the Atos Research Community, or as we call it, ARC. For those who may not be familiar, ARC is a diverse network of innovators, technologists, and thought leaders within Atos. Our mission is to stay ahead of the curve by exploring emerging trends and delivering fast, forward-thinking insights. One of many examples of our work is our latest white paper, a practical blueprint for implementing generative AI retrieval-augmented generation. Now, today's session is designed to take you beyond the headlines about Gen AI and dive into the practicalities of how RAG is addressing real business challenges. You'll hear directly from the bright minds behind our white paper and hopefully gain actionable insights into how organizations can adopt RAG to drive tangible business outcome. I also want to encourage everyone to participate in today's discussion, so let us know your thoughts in the comments panel. We'd love to hear from you, and if by any chance we won't be able to address them, we can always take them offline and get back to you. I have the pleasure of co-moderating this conversation today with Adil Tahiri. And let me just say that Adil brings a wealth of experience and vision, and I'm excited for the perspective that he will share throughout the session as well. So without further ado, let me hand over the stage to Adil to kick things off. Over to you, Adil.
Thank you, Anita, for your kind words. And I'm really delighted to be here today. So the focus on this session is on retrieval-augmented generation. And regardless whether you're still excited about Gen AI or you're a little bit fatigued, I think by now the generative AI transformative powers are very clear and undeniable. And we believe that it's only a matter of time before we see exponential adoption and growth. So over the next 30 minutes or so, alongside my Atos colleagues, we'd like to share with you our experiences deploying RAG for a number of our customers, including some of the lessons learned, but also some of the developments that are really exciting that we believe will actually increase RAG relevance, but also scope in the context of enterprise use cases. So without further ado, let's start from the beginning by asking Misha, what is RAG and why is it important in the application of GenAI in enterprise use cases?
Thanks, Adil. So yes, RAG, or Retrieval-Augmented Generation, is basically a technique where you ingest information into a question that you ask a large language model. And by doing so, you can depend on that data to get more real-time information about the information that you provide to the system. So imagine that you are asking for a recipe to a large language model. Of course, it will answer based on its own knowledge. But if you give it information about the recipes you like, then it will focus itself on that information. That's a simple example on how RAG would actually work. So instead of totally depending on the knowledge that a knowledge model have, you ingest your own information into the prompt. And therefore, you get more accurate information. And as a bonus feature, it's really real time. So the information is added directly as you ask the question, instead of you having to fine tune models, which is a quite cumbersome and expensive process. So in the end, it saves us time and resources, and it enables AI to provide faster and more reliable answers. and in the end, it supports better decision making in the business context. Sorry.
Okay, and here, if I may, I add an example to illustrate this. Let's take our own help desk, for example. Our help desk consists of thousands of articles, and it's usually hard to find the right one. And when myself or colleagues, we want to use help desk, we actually only want one thing, which is solving our own problem. So today, with RAG, all the articles of the help desk are vectorized in a RAG database, which means that any user, myself included, we could just describe our problem in natural language. Then the system will find the article symmetrically closest to the question, and then it will combine them into an answer, which will include links to the original articles on our help desk system. So like this, we will not only answer the initial question, but also give the person who asked the question additional information to make sure that they receive the detailed steps that actually solve the problem, as usually multiple articles are combined to find the final answer.
Thank you, Samia, and thank you, Misha. Now, let's try and explore a little bit more about the inherent problems of GenAI. I think most of us that have used GenAI have come across some of the data privacy issues, some of the bias, but also, just like teenagers, I think we know that GenAI is very good at lying, and it lies with confidence, and it's also make things up. So I have a teenager myself, so I can attest to that. So Peshetan, can you please tell me, in the context of these issues that I've just mentioned, does RAG help or hinder?
All right, that's a very important question, and as we speak, every government, every country, regulations are looking at it. So to answer your questions, to a certain extent, the RAC really addresses several challenges in AI, and I would say it includes data privacy, bias, and hallucinations. And the way it does is, just taking point to what Misha just explained, by dynamically retrieving data instead of storing it directly in the model. Actually, RAG helps maintain data privacy, and it keeps the sensitive information secure. So that's one aspect of it. The second aspect is, how do you minimize the bias? And since RAG uses diverse and reliable data sources, which basically would lead to more balanced and fair outputs. Okay, and that's where it really helps preventing hallucination, because your data is grounded and ensuring that the responses are based on verified real-time information. So that's where it works great. Now, when it comes to hindering, of course, this technology is evolving, and I would say when it comes to working with structured data, you might face some problems. So say, for example, in your PDF documents, you have huge tables. Probably that may not be the most optimum approach. But again, there are workarounds like, pre-processing steps, converting that to JSON and stuff like that. So yes, to a great extent, it really helps. And to a certain extent, of course, as we speak, the technology is evolving, and whatever challenges are, these challenges are getting resolved. Now, just to give you just to put the things into context. In fact, when we were deploying this RAG technology for one of our customer, now this is the largest sporting global event company, and what we're doing them is to provide the correct real-time information about the policies and procedures for the event organizer. So again, what we have done is taken the large language model, we have taken their policies documents and put that into a RAG engine, and as Samia mentioned, vectorizing it, and that each answer received from the RAG is evaluated for groundness and relevancy in real time, indicating actually the user, so it brings in the transparency, and it gives the user an indication on the answer quality. So I would say that's, with this RAG, it really is able to tackle all the challenges when it comes to bias or hallucination and stuff like that.
Thank you, Pishatan, and really appreciate it. Now, I think working with our customers for the last 12 to 18 months on a number of use cases, and a lot of them initially try to use LLMs and GenAI as a smart user interface to be able to get access to the right information very quickly and find answers in a variety of use cases, and they are almost limitless. I think one of the questions that we always get asked, and this is a question to Misha, is now that LLM is actually becoming a unified interface to access information, we spent decades building role-based access control that actually only allow access to the data on a need basis. So how what are the mechanisms today that we're deploying with our customers to ensure that when LLMs become the unified interface, that we still maintain the RBAC controls in place?
Yes, thanks for that question, Adil. It's indeed a problem because if you create a new system where you upload a document set, either uploading it directly or through other interfaces like SharePoint or perhaps an API, then you always have the problem that it's all or nothing, right? So people that can join that space, they can ask questions about all the data that's there, because the RAG system will just fetch the most relevant pieces of information from whatever data it has and displays it to the user. Now, there are a lot of some techniques that we can use and that we also use with our customers. So with every data that you ingest, so when you upload a document, it will basically translate into text, that will translate into chunks, which will upload to a vector database. You can also include metadata. And that metadata can include things like group access. It can include things like customer names, maybe department titles. So when a user logs in and tries to query that data, we can check, okay, does this user belong to the security group that he used to have access on, for example, on SharePoint? And then we filter the information based on that data. So answer filtering is a very important part of that. So when you ingest data, make sure you ingest the metadata that goes with it. With that, you gain much more fine-grained control of what users can see, and you can segment them that way. Other technique is that you can limit a prompt to use a certain set of documents, so that for some questions, when the intent is detected, you only retrieve information from certain documents that you, for example, have earmarked to be fit for everyone, and other documents maybe for a certain group. So there's different data protection mechanisms that you can use to protect that. Of course, all data is encrypted and secure to all the protocols that we use. And then finally, we have to make everything transparent because, of course, the system can make mistakes. And if it makes mistakes, we need to detect that as soon as possible to address them. So there's an auditing layer where with every response, we provide a full clearability and also make it exceptionally clear where the data came from, how it came to its conclusion, how it ranked the data to show it as part of the answer, so that we can always trace back what happened during that call, and if it made a mistake, we can adjust the parameters so it will not happen again. And then finally, we have ethical guidelines. So all of our systems have content filtering, which means that you cannot just ask everything, and we have full control on both input and output parameters, on what questions you can ask that actually go to the large language model, but also which answers can come back. So think about things like simple things like sexual content, violence, those kind of questions. But you can also put in place your own regular expressions where you can limit the system on giving certain answers. So to give an example about that, we are actually building a global generative AI system to handle HR related questions for one of our customers, and they have different roles per country. So if you are living in France, your HR rules might be different as if you're living in the Netherlands, for example. So when a user logs in, based on their SSO credentials, we can see this user, for example, is from France. This user is from this department. And as I explained before, because we add all the metadata when we ingest the data, we can filter the response that that person gets back based on his or her country and department. And therefore, they all have their own unique experience, but we are safeguarding that they don't see information that they should not see.
Thank you, Michel. So I think this is quite an important element. While the RBAC, already exists, it's not they're not actually extracted from a metadata perspective by default. So a lot of enterprise should really pay very careful attention, do a lot of testing to make sure that their security integrity remains intact after accessing lots of information through LLM. Thank you, Michel. if we try and share with the audience some of the top 3 challenges that actually we have with the implementation of RAG. So to let you catch your breath, Misha, I'm going to direct that question to Pashatan.
Uh, yeah, thanks, Adil. So again, as Misha mentioned, he talked about the cool things which we have done from a platform perspective. But as we have developed this platform, definitely there's a lot of learnings, and that's really great to share with you the top 3 ones. So if I have to categorize which those top 3 are, so the first one is, as I'd mentioned, handling structured data. Now, when it comes to structured data like tables in a document, probably that's something where RAG doesn't do a good job. And the way we handle this is by converting that structured data into a formats like annotate text or JSON, so that it becomes more easier for the RAG to understand and use. Okay, so as I said, yeah, I mean, it's not standard out of the box, but then there is a bit of a pre-processing which you have to do when it comes to structured data. Now, the second challenge I would say is on the data quality. Of course, everyone knows, you junk in and junk out, but then the effectiveness of the RAG depends heavily on the quality of the data and the prompt quality. Now, again, what we have seen as it's not a one-shot approach, but you have to conduct regular data audits and you have to standardize data processing pipelines, which will really help ensure data consistency, reliability, and accuracy. But again, as I said, on one side there are challenges, but at the same time, if you see the evolution of what's happening in the large language models, there are a lot of new models which are coming up. For example, like GPT-4. With GPT-4, then this has improved a lot, but then I would say there's still some work which needs to be done in a right combination when it comes to RAG. And the third challenge is handling the large data sets, because these LLMs have a limited context windows, which makes processing large data sets challenging. And the way we have figured it out, of course, is as I said, this is it's a kind of a evolving technology, and with agentic frameworks, we believe that we would be able to kind of have different agents doing a certain purpose, and eventually we would be able to handle this large data sets as well. So Adil, if I have to summarize, these are the 3 ones based on our learnings which we had when we developed this platform.
Thank you, Pashatan. And you had to mention the A word. I think we were banned from mentioning agentic, but you did already. So Misha, the same question for you. From your experience with customers for the last 12 to 18 months, what do you think the top 3 challenges on your side?
Okay, so yeah, we worked with a organization that governs large football competitions, and that was quite an interesting journey, because retrieval generative AI systems are not magic, right? It's not just you throw a bunch of documents at it and it will be able to answer all your questions, regardless of what marketing makes you believe. That's not how it works. So when we did this project, although their documents were of pretty high quality, there was quite an overlap between the documents. And that's particularly true for common things. For example, I'll give you a very simple example, like password reset. There might be a mention of passwords in many different documents. And of course, how these systems work is you ask a question, they retrieve what they see as the top similarity chunks of information that they want to ingest into the answer, and it can go wrong. So what we heavily underestimated, and that's what we also changed as part of our process based on what we learned with our customers, is that you first have to focus on your data quality. So we designed a process where we can, based on synthetic question answer sets, we can check the quality of the data before we even start. So we can tell how good will the system do based on this data. So it also relies a lot on the customer in this case to provide us a set of questions and what they consider grounded answers, so we can compare how good is the system doing. And using an evaluation framework that we designed, we can see, okay, how does this set score with this model and this other model, and what if we change the size of the chunks that the vector database gives back? What if we change the overlap? What's the impact of the prompt? There's a lot of variables in getting this right. That's interesting to learn, because we learned a lot during this journey, and also we learned how we can do it better for our next customer to help them quicker. But do know that you have to put quite some effort upfront to make sure that your data is on par with quality and that you understand what you actually want to get out of it. If you know that, you can run many tests to ensure that you use the right model, the right settings, etc.
So effectively, Misha, I think it's fair to say that there is lots of fine-tuning after the initial execution of the use case, and it takes quite a few months to get to the level where there is confidence and it delivers to the initial requirements, yeah?
Yeah, and it's a constant process. It doesn't stop with the first ingestion, so you constantly have to iterate to make it better and better over time.
Okay. Thank you, Misha. On the topic of RAG, I think it established itself as the de facto standard for integrating corporate data with LLMs. But of course, it's not standing still, and there are lots of exciting developments. So, Peshatin, can you just give us some ideas of what's really exciting from your side in terms of RAG developments?
Sure. So this topic is very close to my heart, because I keep on observing what's happening, what are the new things which are being developed. So if I have to summarize what are the new developments, I would say the top three are the multimodal RAG, hybrid approach, and improved retrieval mechanism. So let me kind of give a more in-depth view for each of those. So when it comes to multimodal RAG, this eventually, so in the past, when it comes to RAG, it was pretty much your text documents, right? You used to upload PDF documents and you used to have conversation. Now what's happening is with the RAG, the evolution of RAG, you could actually have text, images, audio, video. So it really results in more comprehensive AI generated answers. So just imagine if you have a document with huge images, or if you have some hyperlinks to the videos and stuff like that, RAG with multimodal functionality is able to understand those aspects as well and give you more contextualized or more relevant answer. So that's a very cool feature which we see from the development perspective. Now the second aspect which I would say is hybrid approaches. So when I say hybrid approaches, so in the past, as for instance, when Samya mentioned that we could we vectorize the text into this vector database and stuff like that. Now eventually what we had learn in the past or the power of what knowledge graphs provide when it comes to having a relationship between documents and stuff like that. Taking the same approach and applying it for RAG has really improved the system's ability to answer complex questions by understanding the relationship between the different data points. Because in the past, it was two separate documents, but now with this knowledge graphs, we are able to understand what is the relationship between those two. So that's the second one, which I would say. Now, the third one is, of course, as I said, when it comes to the improved retrieval mechanisms, we are seeing advances in the way the efficiency of this RAG could be further improved, being more accurate and responsive, which really directly enhances the quality of AI outputs for the business case. So eventually, if we have to kind of say these are the top three things which have kind of, we're seeing this getting moved from POC to production, but at the same time, I would say, as Adil I mentioned before, there's a lot happening from an agentic RAG perspective. We're using agentic frameworks to combine queries to different RAGs to combine answers. So it's like, orchestration. So you have orchestration of agents really helping to provide you more contextualized, more relevant answers. So I would let Misha talk about one of the cool case which he did. Misha.
Yes, so I promise not to use the agent word, but I have to use it. Sorry about that. So one example that we did internally is we have to, we work a lot with our customers to deliver what are called cloud advisory reports. So basically work with them to see where they stand on their cloud journey and help them to make the next step. And of course, this journey always starts with an interview with a customer, which is either noted down electronically or on a piece of paper. And then from this interview, we will write this cloud advisory report. Now, what's very important for us is that we do this consistently with high quality and at speed. But it's not that easy. You need quite some knowledge to build those reports, and there's quite some checking that needs to be done to ensure that we have set up the reports correctly. So in this case, we combined a number of techniques where we used an agentic framework in combination with RAG, in combination with a knowledge graph, and in combination with integrations with systems like SharePoint, but also APIs from other systems, where we built a pipeline where we scan the notes taken by the person that went to the customer, which could either be written notes or electronic. Then it's pushed to the system to retrieve what we see as a good standard for a cloud advisory report. It then asks questions to the RAG system to populate the right areas, and then all brings together to a complete report in the end. And what this shows is that RAG is, well, while it first was one of the primary methods to query a large language model in combination with your own data, it now becomes part of a pipeline process. So it's multiple steps where RAG can have one or more of these steps either connected to one knowledge system or to multiple. So combine these different techniques into a chain will give us the benefits from what we have learned in the past, querying information from external systems that we have embedded into a RAG system, plus the new techniques that are coming along, and together they make these new use cases.
Okay, thank you, Pshatam and Amisha. I think it's fair to say that a lot of the actual development they are going into making RAG more accurate, but also to make it smarter in terms of reasoning and inference. Yeah. Now on to the next question, which is to Misha. There is a trend that we're seeing right now, which is the potential of both generation and retrieval merging into the same AI models. And the question for you, Misha, is do you think that this poses a threat to RAG, especially that a lot of enterprises have either embarked or they're embarking on actually investing heavily on RAG systems, or there is a need for businesses to invest in both approaches?
I think there's still a need to invest in both approaches, at least for the short term. Before the whole agent buzzword started, there was something else called an assistant. And an assistant is an entity that can use a large language model plus additional things. And when you talk about additional things, it can do file retrieval, it can do code interpretation, and you can add your own tools. Of course, agents are just a sum of many of these assistants, but the word file retrieval indicates that these assistants are capable of having a mini RAG as part of their capabilities. And mini is maybe the wrong word because you can upload a lot of documents to it and add it as part of that process. The only downside is that when you do it, it basically tries to make sense of the documents itself as part of its context, where the larger RAG systems, you have much more control. As explained before, we do quite some work on the ingestion process where we run our own algorithms to make sure that you select the right model, that you have the right chunk size, etc. And also have a lot of testing with these semantic data sets, which we can do automatically. This is a little bit harder when you do it as part of an assistant. Also, there's of course some limits to what you can do with it with regards to size, number of documents, that kind of things. So although it becomes easier now to build your own little small RAG systems, for those of you who used, I don't know, a tool like ChatGPT or any other tool that you can use online, you will see this little paperclip. If you upload a file to this system, that can be one of two things. So it's either a simple RAG system with one document, so it uploads that document, converts, you can ask a question, or it uses code interpretation to make sense of that document. But these are two different things and should not be confused. So when you do code interpretation, of course, it knows a lot about your document, like on which page number is which piece of text, how many pages in my documents, but it might not be able to answer your question as well. So I think there is two different viewpoints to how you use RAG, either in a small form factor for personal use or for small use cases, or in a large form factor where you use it as your company knowledge. And therefore, I think it's always a combination, at least for now, that will stay. And the last remark about that is the context size. So the most LLMs have a context size between 32,000 and 128,000 characters. That means that's the maximum amount of information you can put inside a prompt. And of course, because these context windows are getting bigger, you could think I just copy and paste my whole document and then I can ask questions about it, which is totally true. But also think about the cost element, right? When you use a RAG system, it just fetches the top chunks of information that things are relevant and puts that in the prompt. And therefore, it's much more specific. You filter the data before you actually ask the question. And if you use directly in the prompt, you don't. You just use all the tokens to answer that question. And I don't think token windows will get much bigger because you're reaching the limits of what hardware can do at this point in time. I think the focus will be on smaller language models, which are very good at answering questions. Therefore, the combination between smaller language models and RAG is a very efficient one. That's why I think it's to stay. Sorry for a long answer. Yeah.
No, that's okay, Misha. I think that leads me to the next question and the penultimate question. So, RAG is not the only player in the game. So, of course, you can fine tune the LMs. You have SLM. So, Pashatan, can you just talk us a little bit more about how do you position the three, and at a high level, when do you actually select one versus the others?
Yeah, sure. So, extending what Misha mentioned, what I would say is, when it comes to SLM, for instance, what we see is you could further improve the accuracy of the answers which you get back from RAG, and the way you would probably do it is you could use SLM for your own business data, or fine tuning it, and then taking that small language model, because when it comes to rolling out an SLM, probably that's much quicker, much less expensive, and eventually what you're doing is you kind of taking the output of an SLM and giving it to a large language model. So you are further contextualizing the data, you're further making that data relevant, because your small language model is has that understanding of your data. So that's where having this mashup of SLM and eventually giving the output of an SLM to and RAG or to an LLM, that would make it more accurate and more relevant answers, basically. Are they?
Okay. So it's about trade-offs for each approach, effectively.
That's correct. Yeah.
Thank you, Prashant. So the last question we have, and I think it's quite important from a business perspective. I think we see with the extreme hype over the last 12 to 18 months that adoption of GenAI, especially in the context of enterprise, still lags significantly behind the pace of innovation. Samia, from your experiences working with lots of customers over the last year and a half, why do you think that is the case?
Well, it is true that today we see that adoption of GenAI is really moving at a much lower speed than the development at which the technology is moving. And this slower adoption, despite the rapid advancement of GenAI, can be actually attributed to several key factors here. First, we have that many companies are today still tasting the waters, meaning that they are still working with limited pilot projects, cautious budgets, because they are really looking for a clear return on investment right now. And this cautious approach is actually due to the complexity of integrating GenAI into existing processes, because this will require significant customization, organizational change, and a lot of disturbance to the way these companies are working today. Additionally, there are many concerns about ethics, about data privacy, about job displacements as well. And all of these present further obstacles. And today, businesses will often prioritize immediate, short-term, tangible results over any long-term commitments. So today, while GenAI is really a top priority for C-level executives, organizational culture still plays a really crucial role in determining how quickly and effectively all the initiatives that we're seeing will be implemented. So there are challenges such as resistance to change, lack of AI and GenAI understanding, sometimes also both from the top level, but also from all the employees of a company. All of this must be addressed through gradual cultural changes and cultural shifts, in my opinion. So what we need actually is a comprehensive support system that will offer to the companies who really want to speed the adoption of GenAI, customized solutions, expert advice, and industry insights as well. So that's why today in the team and the way we're working with customers and how we address these topics is that we've already developed numerous proof of concepts, deployments, and Misha and Purushottam have spoken about many of the engagements that we've had so far. So the way we work is that we work very closely with our customers. We really co-create with our customers so that we can make sure that their strategies and the cultural shifts that they have will align seamlessly. And we believe really that the success today for GenAI, so that we can really get to the adoption level that we're looking for, will go beyond having the best and or the latest technology. It's really about how we embed it in everyday operations so that we can really get meaningful impact.
Samia, just briefly, just on the topic of return on investment, I think today we see a lot of focus on individual productivity. So do you think that that needs to be changed very quickly to make sure that we encourage businesses to adopt based on the real returns for GenAI use cases?
Yeah, I absolutely agree, because today the focus, especially with the deployment with Copilot and the assistants, the focus has been a lot on individual productivity. But and that's why the way companies are really now measuring the real impact and the real return on investment on that is going much slower than all the predictions that we have been over the last 2 years. It's really the time to move to changing the way we work and embedding GenAI not only in everyday tasks, trying to make them easier, to make them less repetitive. All of this brings a lot of value, but more value will come from really transforming the processes themselves, from reviewing them, from using GenAI to understand current processes and how can we make them more efficient so that we can get to this level of efficiency and productivity that the big analysts have been predicting for the past 2 years.
Thank you so much. I guess now we will try and address some of the questions and comments that have been actually posed by the audience. Can we start with saying a couple of things regarding the limitations of RAG caused by the context length in LLMs in comparison, for example, to fine-tuning? Michel Pichetan, who would you like to try and address the question?
Sure. So if you use a fine-tuned model, you basically retrain an existing model. While you're not retraining it, you remove a connection to make it smaller and make it more about your information, right? This is particularly handy when you, for example, are working in a context where there's a lot of specific words that might not be part of a large language model. However, the downside is that training activity is like a one-off thing, right? You have to do that again and again to keep your model relevant. If you use a RAG system, that's not the case. And of course, the context length plays a role, but the magic component, or maybe magic is the wrong word, is that the vector database plays a big role in this. So what a vector database essentially does is if you ask a question, that question is transferred semantically to a vector database, which then uses an algorithm called cosine similarity that asks the vector database, okay, based on this question, which chunks are most relevant to this question. And of course, then you can put all kinds of techniques on top of that. So in our case, we do a lot of re-ranking. That means we ask the vector database to return the top 40 articles, and then we rank them in the semantic order based on the question. So we put the most important one on the top, and then we use the top 5 articles to answer the questions. Now, in most use cases, this is more than sufficient, right? Sometimes you need a top 10, sometimes you need a top 20, but most use cases, top 5 will do fine because you use that re-ranking process. Now, on average, any question used on one of our systems using this re-ranking technique uses 3,500 tokens as input and 500 tokens as output. And the context window is way bigger. But it's not just about getting as much context in the question as possible, because the system can also go at RAG. It's more for us about efficiency and speed. And if you then combine that with additional technique, because if the discussion gets longer and longer, you're adding more information to the history of your chat, and therefore you grow the context of your prompt. We also employ techniques where we summarize the history after every question, therefore keeping the response as small as possible. Because yes, we could fit more into the context. Will it help us? Our studies show that it doesn't. We rather leverage the top answers from the RAG, and we want to keep it as efficient and economically as possible as well, because especially in large organization, there will be a lot of questions, so therefore a lot of tokens. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Misha. Next and final question, and it's really an excellent question, is we talked about the RBAC model, Misha and Peshatan, is what happens if there's been a change in the RBAC model after the data has been digested and ingested?
Okay, so in our case, we run the ingestion every night. It depends a little bit on the use case, so we can do it hourly or bi-hourly. But every night we check what the status is of our data source. And we can detect changes. And if there is a change, we will update the metadata based on the latest change, which could be a deletion, an addition, or just a change to the document. And because any change to a document is flagged, that also means all the metadata gets re-imported again. And therefore, we can make sure that the access stays relevant with a time gap, right? Depending on the use case, that's relevant or not, but we do it once a day for our use case.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think the GenAI potential is really undeniable. The adoption is still climbing the S-curve, and it's going to take probably a couple of years to actually reach the inflection point where we see exponential adoption. But the combination of LMs and RAG, they are already proven solutions. They can address a number of challenges in the enterprise market relating to a number of use cases, and they can really unlock significant value going forward. So based on our experience over the last 12 to 18 months and working with numerous customers, we really believe that the time is right now to actually move from experimentation to production, so we are not left behind. Anita, back to you.
Thank you so much. I feel like this has been a great opportunity to explore the topic and share it with our audience. I can just say thank you to everyone who tuned in today. A special shout out to our ARC members, Adil, Samia, Misha, and Prashatam, for sharing their insights and thoughts on the topic. And just quickly before we wrap up, I want to remind everyone that the conversation doesn't stop here. We really want to keep the discussion alive and going. So connect with us on LinkedIn and share more of your thoughts, or if you have any further questions, share your thoughts on what topics keep you busy enough for us to discuss them next. We're really excited to continue this format and host sessions like this because there's still so much more to explore. Don't forget the hashtag, which you're able to see right now, ARC Innovators. Follow our activity on social media. We'll also be adding the website link to our page in the comments for easy access and for more information about our community, including the link to the white paper. You can find it there too. Again, thank you for joining us today. We truly appreciate your time and your engagement, and we look forward to seeing you at future ARC events in 2025. Have a fantastic holiday break, everyone. Enjoy your time with your families, and see you next year. Thanks again. Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.